The skinny lady opened the blender cover to add water, but
Easy as that.
when the firefighters arrived, the woman's whole body was stuck in the blender. The dough turned red. Even though she could still breathe, the situation didn't look good. The firefighters tried to save her while quickly dismantling the machine. Suddenly, a firefighter noticed the woman's right hand had no pulse. After examination, they found the dough blocked most of the blood flow. The artery was damaged. They had to wrap the wound with dough first. Before handing her over to the doctor, the firefighter wrapped the blender with gauze, then lifted the woman and the blender out together. Hopefully, she'll learn her lesson and never stick her hand in a blender again. The man dug out a hand from the sand. He immediately picked up the pace because a child was buried inside. The rescue team got a call a moment ago. An 8-year-old fell into a sand pit. The captain rushed to the scene. Seeing the kid's dad using a shovel, the captain shoved him aside, started digging barehanded. Turns out, using tools recklessly could hurt the kid. The rest of the team arrived. They slapped some boards on the surface, stuck dividers all around to keep the sand pile from caving in again. After many shovels, a little hand finally emerged. Following the captain's lead, everyone pitched in. Finally, the kid's head was uncovered. A firefighter handed over an oxygen tank, put a mask on the kid. After a few minutes, the kid suddenly gasped for air. Dad hears the kids up, rushes to the sand pile, but the firefighters put the brakes on him. Looks like this dad still hasn't learned his lesson. What a poor kid.
A black man was driving home with his kids when a white cop stopped him. After checking his papers, the cop still told him to get out of the car. The man knew he was being targeted, but his kids were in the car, so he did what the cop said. Then the cop got even tougher and pushed him onto the car hood. The daughter in the car quickly started recording on her phone, got out, and argued with the cop, waking up her sleeping brother. The white cop immediately pulled out his gun and pointed it at the boy. The father stepped in, saying his wife was the police chief, begging them not to hurt his kids. Then they stopped. On the other side, the police chief's wife saw the body cam footage and found the drunk white cop. She made him get out of his car and gave him a breathalyzer test. She wanted him to feel the humiliation her family went through. Do you love your family?
The woman's leg is stuck in the hole. Simultaneously, a large bus approached. Firefighters quickly positioned themselves in front of the vehicle. Other team members rushed over too. Despite the efforts of 2 firefighters, they were unable to pull the woman's leg free. The asphalt even scratched her thigh. The firefighters had no choice but to carefully dig her leg out bit by bit. The team medic quietly warned, if not handled properly, the woman might lose her entire leg.
Did you just say lose my leg? Is that true?
The woman's emotions were gradually spiraling out of control. Why did all the misfortunes have to happen in one day? It turns out, her best friend is moving away, but she has already fallen in love with her. Just then, the best friend arrives. The woman finally pours out her feelings.
More than just friend feelings and...
Unexpectedly, the best friend kissed her directly. It turns out, she harbored the same feelings. With the support of her girlfriend, the woman's leg was finally pulled free. Do you still dare to look at your phone while walking? Infant slowly descends into the water, on the verge of drowning. Fortunately, the woman suddenly woke up, lifted the baby from the water. Even though the doctor assured the baby was fine, the mother still felt a deep sense of guilt, took the child to the fire station.
Not now, and maybe... I know that you're gonna take really good care of her, and she's better off without me.
The firefighter husband, upon watching the video, teared up. Meanwhile, his wife arrived at the seaside. Since giving birth, the wife had been raising the child on her own. Overwhelming pressure left her breathless, longing to end the pain with death. A few days later, the woman woke up. In order to undergo treatment, moved back to the hospital in her hometown. After recovery, she returned home once again. By this time, her husband had learned the art of parenting, pledging never to let her bear the burden alone again. Have you ever experienced overwhelming stress? The man clinched the bodybuilders championship. His father, the former champion, eagerly took the stage and hoisted the trophy with him, but the firefighters arrived promptly. The scene is pure chaos. The father and son found themselves stuck on the stage, getting an earful from furious fans because the substance in his arm is synthetic oil, intended to bulk up his muscles. To everyone's surprise, the father is a fraud. All the honors he tirelessly earned throughout his life are completely trashed today. This will also mess with his son's future. After some emergency medical attention, the firefighters were ready to take him to the hospital. However, the irate fans cornered them. The black policewoman had to grab the microphone.
don't know if what this man did, but I do know this. That pursuant to Section 148.2 of the California State Penal Code, it is a misdemeanor to willfully obstruct emergency personnel from discharging their official duties. Now let me advise you, do not obstruct.
Finally, the crowd dispersed. Before leaving, the guy decided to ditch the hard-earned trophy he just got. A gal's attempting a yoga stunt, hanging upside down on the balcony, and then the rescue team storms in. She's frozen, contemplating life from the 7th floor ledge. They're ready to call in the CSI squad when she miraculously wakes up. Firefighters strap her spine for the grand descent. Her legs are now honorary noodles, so they slap on some splints for the road trip. Meanwhile, the woman, more worried about her phone than her fractured limbs, keeps babbling about it. Seeing her phone obsession, Captain Obvious sends someone upstairs. They discover the ongoing live stream. Turns out, our gal was attempting balcony yoga for internet fame and fortune. She bent herself into a real-life pickle. The hot girl holds onto a child, blood dripping from her wrist.
Wait, no, please don't call an ambulance. I can't afford an ambulance.
She pleads with a neighbor to give her a ride to the hospital. Andy insists her wrist needs urgent attention and argues for an ambulance. The girl shares her struggles, being a single mom with an unreliable ex, behind on rent and unable to cover ambulance costs. Andy makes do by using her t-shirt to stop the bleeding and has her husband call her dad. Then, comforting the girl,
For a private ambulance service, he won't put it on the books.
Oh my god.
she eases up upon hearing the plan. The elderly man takes her to the hospital, leaving the couple to look after the kid. Unexpectedly, the little troublemakers start messing around with the man's toy gun.
Now you're the bad guy.
I'm okay. Milo, are you okay?
I want my mommy.
Okay, you're okay. You're okay. He's okay.
I don't think I'm okay.
The man turned his head, only to see a black woman with eyes gleaming gold. Turned out, the man was high on drugs and started biting people like crazy. The cop warned him to stop, but he completely ignored her and charged right at her. He ends up being pushed back by the black cop's secret weapon, but he seemed unfazed, as if he doesn't feel pain at all. He even pulled out the electric shock line directly. The cop has no choice but to draw her gun. The man still didn't stop, and ended up getting shot in the head.
Oh my god. I can't see. Oh, I can't see. Help me. Call 911.
911, what's your emergency?
Firefighters sprung into immediate action, but the woman, unable to see, struggled to open the door. The captain decided to break the door down. While the team medic held the woman's eyes open, they discovered a strange green film-like layer covering her pupils.
What was that?
Perplexed, they noticed something moving within her eyes.
Something like a worm?
Oh god. Oh god.
Sample jar.
Get in my eye.
Hastily, they grabbed a pair of tweezers and began extracting a worm, followed by a dozen or perhaps even 20 more, one after another. The woman was on the verge of vomiting. Fortunately, as the worms were removed, her vision began to clear. It turned out that she had been practicing a yoga pose known as the goat press 4 planking, and a parasite from the goat had somehow made its way into her eyes, feeding on her tears and laying eggs inside them. The dude is dying, but the emergency call he made in his final moments was intentionally hung up on. Two police officers look puzzled. Originally, the two came to eat, but the restaurant is empty with half-eaten meals on the tables. The police holding guns go to the kitchen and find the barely conscious owner. He's been shot in the left chest, lying on the ground. The woman provides first aid. The dude regains consciousness. Turned out, he encountered a robber, but the call he made was hung up. To everyone's surprise, the one who hung up the call was Lily, a senior operator at the 911 emergency center. She has been working here for over 10 years, being the most efficient and fastest operator in the entire police department. However, it was her who maliciously hung up on thousands of emergency calls. Soon, the police arrested her and investigated. 8 months ago, Lily divorced her husband, unable to cope with the emotional blow. She vented her emotions at work. Soon, Leah was dismissed from the police department. Do you think this woman should be forgiven?
The man was frozen solid like a popsicle. The captain quickly started CPR, but with a crisp crack, the man's chest shattered. This unfortunate man had only been rescued a day earlier when he was trapped under a car, with his arm bones sticking out. Screaming in pain, the firefighters quickly anesthetized him and lifted the car to save his arm. However, the man was still determined to participate in an upcoming golf tournament. Ignoring his wife's objections, he went for a cryotherapy session.
And I hope you freeze to death.
When the firefighters arrived, the man had already been frozen for 34 minutes, and the door was locked. The woman said she had tried using a hairdryer to warm him up, but it didn't work. The firefighters quickly pried open the door. The captain knocked on the man's chest and found it surprisingly fragile. He attempted to perform CPR, but then a girl was lying on the sofa, drinking Coca-Cola. The next second, a meteor fell from the sky and hit her. When the firefighters arrived, they found her still alive.
How am I even alive? I have a hole in me.
They discovered it was the weighted blanket she had bought online that saved her. This weighted blanket contained the blast radius, which have cauterized most of the blood vessels. That's also why she didn't feel particularly hurt. But the sofa was fused to the girl. The firefighters had to use a saw to cut the sofa open.
I'm sorry. Did you say sauce? Did he say sauce? Did you say sauce?
1,234 minutes later, the sofa was finally separated. The girl and the sofa were taken to the hospital together. It's said that besides her, only one other person in history has been hit by a meteor.
Which makes you pretty special.
Is the girl lucky or unlucky? The woman's water broke, but she was pole dancing in the yard. Firefighters tried to approach to check on her.
Stay away from me!
Okay.
I'm pregnant!
It turned out the woman was drunk. She complained during the pandemic. She couldn't do anything, and her useless husband only knew how to have kids. She tried to call him to yell at him, but when he didn't answer, she threw her phone. It hit the innocent firefighter directly, causing him to bleed immediately. The firefighter urged the woman to get in the ambulance, but she insisted on giving birth at home, claiming the ambulance had COVID-19.
I'm not getting in there! Don't in my house!
Oh, ma'am!
She then ran back to her house. The woman's water broke now, and she finally agreed to go to the hospital. The firefighter warned her not to push, but she said she couldn't control it. The next moment, a newborn fell right into her hands.
Baby, my hand!
The woman went for work just after getting into the car.
Oh, God! The list. You forgot the list.
After saying that, she got out to retrieve the list, completely ignoring the man nearby. Even more absurdly, after grabbing the files, she happily drove to work. Coincidentally, today is Christmas. Everyone thought it was a Halloween decoration. Kids were amazed by the unique design.
That one's so cool. Hey, right there.
Until the woman stopped at a gas station. Buck noticed the man in the car actually moved.
Whoa, hey!
Buck quickly caught up and forced the woman to stop. She impatiently asked what was going on. Buck took the opportunity to check her pupils. The man nearby groaned. Buck immediately called the police. The man was taken to the hospital. It turned out that 2 days ago, the woman got into an accident and hit the man, also injuring her own head. The bruising affected her vision, making her unable to see the man. The black boy was impaled by a steel rod, and the other end of the rod was pressing against another boy's neck. Outside, the school bus had already caught fire and was about to explode. The firefighters had to decide which child to save first. After examining the black boy's injuries, finding his clavicle had broken, he cried out in pain.
Hey, easy. You gotta be still, okay?
On the other side, the white boy was struggling to breathe and was on the verge of collapsing. The firefighters decided to save him first, so they started pulling on the steel rod.
Stop!
What?
His clavicle's an inch away from his carotid!
But they couldn't stop and had to lift the rod in one swift motion to free the white boy. Then, they used a saw to cut through the rod and took the black boy to the hospital. Do you know why they didn't just cut the rod in the first place? A girl lies on the floor. Her belly is as big as a balloon. The baby's head is already showing, but the mom is only 14 years old. Just now, firefighters got a call. The principal said it was just a teenager playing around, but the firefighters still checked it out. They were shocked to find a girl in labor in the bathroom, and that girl was the principal's daughter. She was so busy being the principal, she didn't even know her daughter was pregnant. The baby's head was already out. The firefighters had to deliver the baby right there. With one big scream, the baby was pushed out. The firefighter tore open the amniotic sac and sucked the fluid out of the baby's mouth. The baby was born safely. Only then did the principal arrive. Hopefully, she will pay more attention to her own child now. The woman is about to give birth. To help ease the pain, the doctor suggests
naturally reduces pain if you masturbate.
Just a moment ago, her water broke, but a blizzard is raging outside. There's no way to get to the hospital, so she has to give birth at the fire station. The firefighters first had her take a hot shower, but that didn't help at all. As the woman turns pale from the pain, the female firefighter tells her some happy time can help ease the pain.
Cool, give a lady some privacy.
After the pain eases, the woman starts to give birth, and a brown-skinned baby is born. I wonder if this happy time pain relief trick would work in other situations too. The man's arm was trapped tight under a tombstone. The firefighters were about to lift the tombstone, but then they realized it was a clown's tombstone. All the clowns in Gotham started walking toward them. The female firefighter was so scared her hair almost turned black.
Don't do clowns!
The man told her not to worry because he could speak clown language. After a bit of talking, the clowns quietly left the graveyard. The firefighters finally started the rescue. They gave the man a painkiller shot first, then used a lever to lift the tombstone. They finally got the man out, but the tombstone was so heavy it broke his bones. The firefighters rushed him to the hospital right away. The clowns watched him go too. Are you afraid of clowns? A man was hanging from a conveyor belt. His whole arm was stuck in it. Firefighters came to rescue him, but the conveyor belt suddenly started moving. The man screamed in pain. 1 hour later, the power was finally turned off. But just as the firefighters were rescuing him, the conveyor belt started moving again. A firefighter almost fell off. Luckily, his teammates helped him and pulled him back up. Then, the firefighter thought to reverse the machine. The man's arm finally came free. He was rushed to the hospital just in time. Just now, a man threw his ex-boyfriend's clothes into a trash can, but by accident, his car keys fell in two. He reached in to grab them, but his legs were too short. He couldn't touch it, so he jumped. Then he fell right into the can. He tried to kick his way out. Then, he took a tennis racket and banged on the door, but no response, cause the door could only be opened from the outside. He grabbed the keys, kept trying to unlock the car door. He was stuck there until night fell. The air in the trash can got thinner and thinner. Luckily, firefighters were nearby because of another call. They heard the man's cries for help. When the firefighters opened the bin, the man was almost out of breath.
That's all I was expecting.
It never is.
Even sadder, when the man was finally rescued, his car, which he kept trying to unlock, had already been stolen.
The old lady picked up a bowling ball, found it covered in blood. Just now, the manager came to the back to fix the machine, while the staff were playing on their phones at the front. When customers arrived, he directed them to the machine being repaired. The woman in the back had just reached in. When a customer threw a ball, the machine suddenly started moving, trapping her arm. When the fire department arrived, the woman had a weak pulse, was about to pass out. The firefighters could only start by giving her fluids. Because her arm was severely fractured, they had to saw off the support, create a steel splint. Then they were all taken to the hospital together. Before leaving, the woman entrusted Black to be the manager, and his first act as manager was,
Jesse, you're fired.
Dad's hand got stuck in the blender. When the daughter saw it, she walked slowly to inform the fire department. When the firefighters arrived, Dad's arm had already rotated 180 degrees. The firefighters quickly approached to inspect. Turned out the machine had suddenly malfunctioned, caught the man's arm inside. Although the power had been turned off, he dared not move recklessly, could only wait for rescue. The firefighter dismantled the shell, looked at the man's bent arm. To avoid putting pressure on his wound, they had to remove the blender stick along with the man's hand. They unscrewed the axle, slowly rotated the blender stick, finally taking the blender off, then sent the man to the hospital for treatment.
The dude continued to push the door relentlessly, completely ignoring the woman's situation. Firefighters warned him to lay off the glass, told him to shut up, and move to the back. They quickly smashed the glass and went in. While the medic was giving the woman a painkiller, the greasy older guy roared again, forcefully shoving the door, making the woman scream in pain. The firefighter told him to give it another shot, promising to let him chill inside for a day. They then successfully getting the woman out. To make sure the greasy guy learned a lesson, the firefighter came back, firmly jamming the revolving door, leaving the messy older guy behind. So, what do you think? Did the firefighter's actions hit the spot? The hot girl rose from the bed and suddenly her facial skin drooped. Just now, she had gone through a cosmetic procedure. The effects of anesthesia had swiftly overwhelmed her into unconsciousness. But upon regaining consciousness, she was shocked to discover all the doctors had collapsed on the floor, unconscious. Without delay, she dialed 911 for help. To ensure their safety, firefighters entered the hospital wearing gas masks. The entire hospital was strangely quiet. Following the woman's frantic cries, the firefighters soon located the operating table. Just as she attempted to sit up, her facial skin abruptly sagged, obscuring her vision. A paramedic came to her aid, gently repositioned her skin, and applied cold compresses. The firefighters soon realized the doctors had merely lost consciousness. The captain noticed a ruptured anesthesia pipeline within the wall and suspected it had caused the anesthesia gas leak. The woman had not lost consciousness because she was breathing through an oxygen tube. As anticipated, they discovered a construction worker who had also fainted due to the gas exposure. He had collapsed right next to a circular saw. They had to carefully transport him along with the saw blade. In the end, both the woman and the maintenance worker were successfully rescued. It was the chubby dude's first time on a roller coaster. Suddenly, the safety bar came loose, causing his friend to be ejected instantly. The roller coaster came to an abrupt halt at its highest point, leaving the man hanging in midair. Witnessing this spectacle, the rest of the park visitors whipped out there, ready to capture any potential fall. The park staff promptly dialed 911. The firefighters arrived swiftly. They extended the ladder for the rescue, but the fire truck's ladder had height limitations. The brave firefighter had to climb by hand. Upon reaching the man's precarious location, he secured himself and instructed the man to extend his arm through the rescue rope. However, the terrified man refused to let go. The firefighter reached out, urging him to hold on and assuring him everything would be all right. In a distressing turn of events, the overwhelmed man suddenly let go, seemingly out of nowhere. Following the tragic incident, the firefighter was haunted by the man's death. He even began to question his own rescue abilities to the point where he sought assistance from a psychologist.
The little girl clutched her eye in pain, crying out loudly, "Get it off!" The firefighter asked her what was in her eye. As the girl slowly lowered her right hand, both the firefighter and her assistant frowned deeply. Her father explained he had just turned his head for a moment when his daughter suddenly screamed. The firefighter gently guided the girl, step by step, toward a nearby bench, helping her lie down slowly. The fishhook was deeply embedded. It had to be separated from the bait first, while the assistant fetched tools. The firefighter comforted the girl, assuring her it wouldn't hurt at all, but only if she stayed calm and completely still. Then, holding the girl's hand, the assistant quickly cut the fishing line. Next, the firefighter made a large padded bandage with gauze to secure the fishhook in place. The assistant wrapped the gauze around layer by layer, covering both of the girl's eyes. Finally, the two of them helped the girl up and escorted her to the hospital. Her father followed silently behind, wondering how he would explain everything to his wife later that night. "Do you know why the firefighter covered both of her eyes?"
In the mortuary, a forensic examiner was all set to dive into an autopsy when the supposedly deceased person suddenly twitched. He put a hand on the examiner. Then, with a big gasp, this corpse sprang back to life. The examiner fainted like a Victorian damsel, causing the electric saw they were holding to make an unwanted cameo, giving his thigh an impromptu slice. The guy dialed 911.
911, what's your emergency?
The rescue squad came zooming in to save the day. Upon checkup, they found the examiner's cut, although a bit deep, hadn't hit any major blood vessels. But how on earth did this guy manage a Lazarus act? Turns out, He's got a serious case of napolepsy, where he goes full-on Rip Van Winkle and takes power naps that make him look like a one-man zombie squad. This was his third walk on the sleep-deprived side. In the wee hours, at 1:30 a.m., a man pushed his wife into the fire station with an extraordinary claim. He insisted she could only stay upside down, as her heart would go on an unscheduled break if they dared to turn her right side up. The firefighters, with eyebrows raised, checked her blood pressure and pulse, only to find everything shipshape. They even considered if it was some kind of bizarre prank. The man then shared a peculiar story. They were peacefully practicing yoga at home when his wife's heart decided to clock out unexpectedly. CPR was a no-go, but here's the kicker. Her heart only started beating again when she went topsy-turvy. So, his wife had become a pro at dying multiple times at home lately. The woman wondered if it had something to do with her pacemaker. The firefighters quickly played detective and hit the jackpot. It was a wiring issue with the pacemaker. Now, the only way to save the day was to rush her to the hospital. But how on earth do you transport an upside-down woman to the ER? The man was sunbathing and got struck by lightning. Blood gushed out from the sand. Just a while ago, his obedient son, while his father was sleeping, conspired with his mother to dig a hole and bury the father. Both of them looked quite pleased, even splashing a bucket of cold water on him. Suddenly, a lightning bolt struck. When they realized what had happened, they found the sand on the father's body had miraculously turned into glass due to the high temperature, and more blood gushed out. Firefighters quickly arrived, carefully chipping away at the glass and moving it. However, as they removed the surface sand, they discovered a piece of glass had pierced the man's carotid artery, and the high temperature at the time had caused the wound to quickly scab over. So, they proceeded to bandage the man's wound while continuing to dig out the sand. The man was eventually dug out and taken to the hospital. The mother and son heaved a sigh of relief, realizing they would probably never play with sand again.
The man put a bottle opener on a woman's head and twisted it. A firefighter came to stop him, but the man didn't want to stop. He even twisted harder. Then, it turned out the man was a military doctor. He was trying to release pressure from inside the woman's head, but while he was bandaging the woman, the man suddenly fainted. After checking him, the firefighter found a lot of bruises on the man's stomach. So, the firefighter carried him out, placed him in the red treatment area, but as soon as the firefighter left, a doctor moved him to the black area for dead bodies.
Even if I had an ambulance, he wouldn't make it to the hospital alive.
Because his insides were too damaged, even Dr. Gray couldn't save him.
You get the rest, I didn't.
In the end, the man closed his eyes and ended his life as a military doctor on Children's Day. Dad was bouncing with the kids in the bounce house. Little did he know, he pulled out the stakes too hard, and a gust of wind came. The castle was going to fly away, but instead of helping, everyone took their phones for photos. The castle went higher and higher, like a real-life up movie, but with an unstable center of gravity. Dad fell from tens of meters high. By the time the firefighters arrived, the castle was hanging on a cliff. Below, all rocks. Another wind would mean lives in danger. The firefighters descended with ropes, secured the safety lock, and rescued the 3 kids inside. One was unconscious, and not far away, their dad was seriously injured from the fall. Eventually, they were all taken to the hospital by the firefighters. Kids lift the lid off a barrel, find a woman's hand inside. After the FBI checks, they find a whole woman's body. Meanwhile, a woman just gets free when a flying man suddenly stops her. He asks her why she lied to him. He wanted to go to bed with his sister, but she told him she's not his sister, she's his mom. And the woman he thought was his mom is actually his grandma. Then, the first bucket of cement appears. The man pushes his grandma down into a hole. He uses a metal bar to trap her in the hole, lifts the cement mixer, and lets the cement flow into the hole. Just as the grandma is about to be covered up, the FBI, having found the information, finally arrives. They rescue the trapped grandma and take away the poor man. This hot lady didn't brush her teeth, so her teeth all fell out. It turns out it was just a dream, but when she touched her teeth, the lady actually coughed up a tooth. Then, she coughed up like 5 or 6 more teeth, just when she was choking on her own teeth, almost losing her breath. 911 got a rescue call.
911, what's your emergency?
My teeth. I'm choking on the foot.
When the firefighters arrived, the lady was on the edge of choking, but upon inspection, not only didn't her teeth fall out, there was also a smell of blue cheese from deep in her throat. The firefighters endured the smell. Through the lady's wide open mouth, They found out it wasn't teeth in her throat, but stones. As the lady kept coughing, she coughed up a bunch of stones. To not delay treatment, the firefighters decided to take her to the hospital, but the lady wanted to brush her teeth first. After you brush your teeth, they're all gone. After the firefighters persuaded, the lady finally agreed. Are you still daring not to brush your teeth?
Please, we're going the wrong way.
A few minutes ago, 911 got a call from a boy saying his mom suddenly wasn't responding, no matter what he said. Even worse, she's driving right now, not just bumping into cars, but also getting onto the highway.
We're going the wrong way.
The mom weaved through traffic, though the operator told the cops to stop her. It didn't prevent this tragedy. When the firefighters arrived, there were already 6 dead, 20 injured at the scene. Using a heat imaging camera, a firefighter found the boy who called. After cutting open the roof, the boy was finally rescued. The bottle in the back seat was found too. Although the mom is alive, there are too many dead. Hopefully, she won't drink again in the future, or at least, not before driving.